deep in the heart of Antarctica, where the snow sparkled like a million tiny diamonds and the wind sang a frosty song, lived a little penguin named Pip. Now, Pip wasn't just any penguin. He was famous throughout the entire penguin colony, but not for being the fastest swimmer or the best pitcher. Oh no, Pip was known for his waddle. It was a wibbly, wobbly, wonderfully clumsy waddle that often ended with a soft plop into the snow. But what Pip loved more than anything in the whole wide, icy world was sliding on his belly. Down the snowy hills he'd go, a little black and white rocket, with a happy squawk echoing behind him. Every year, the penguins held the most exciting event of the season, the Great Ice Slide Race. Penguins from all over would gather at the top of the tallest, slipperiest, most magnificent ice hill, called Crystal Peak. The winner would get the shiniest trophy made of pure, clear ice and bragging rights for a whole year. Pip dreamed of winning that race. He imagined himself sliding faster than anyone, crossing the finish line, and holding that glittering trophy high above his head. This year, Pip was determined. "I'm going to win," he chirped to his best friend, a wise old albatross named Albie, who was visiting for the summer. Albie looked down from his perch on a snowy rock, his kind eyes twinkling. "That's a big dream, little fella. The other penguins are very fast. Like Percy. Percy. Percy was the reigning champion. He was sleek and strong, and his slide was a perfect straight line. He never wibbled, and he certainly never wobbled." Percy and his friends often laughed at Pip's clumsy waddle and his messy slides. "Look at wobbly Pip," they'd jeer. "He slides like a runaway snowball." Pip would just puff out his chest and try to ignore them, but their words sometimes felt like little icicles poking at his heart. Determined to prove them wrong, Pip started his training. Every morning, while the other penguins were still huddled together for warmth, Pip was at the bottom of a small practice hill. He'd waddle up, take a deep breath, and launch himself down. Whoosh! He'd start off great, but then a little wibble would start in his feet. The wibble would travel up to his belly, and before he knew it, he'd be spinning in circles, zigzagging wildly, and often ending up in a fluffy snowbank, covered from beak to tail. "Oh, fiddlesticks!" he'd squawk, shaking the snow off. Albie would often watch from above. "You're trying to slide like Percy, Pip," he called down one day. "But you're not Percy, you're Pip." Pip didn't understand. He just wanted to be fast and smooth. So he tried everything. He tried tucking in his flippers extra tight. He tried keeping his head perfectly still. He even tried holding a flat stone under his belly for extra smoothness. Nothing worked. He just kept wibbling, wobbling, and tumbling. He felt discouraged. Maybe Percy and his friends were right. Maybe he was just a clumsy, wobbly penguin who could never win. One afternoon, sitting sadly at the bottom of the practice hill, Pip watched a group of young penguin chicks playing. They were sliding down a small slope, but they weren't trying to be fast. They were spinning and twirling on purpose, laughing and squawking with joy as they tumbled into each other. They were having fun, and it reminded Pip of why he loved sliding in the first place. It wasn't about being the fastest, it was about the feeling of the cold air rushing past, the thrill of the speed, the pure, simple joy of it. A new idea sparked in Pip's mind. Albie, he chirped, waddling excitedly over to his friend. What if I don't try to stop the wobble? What if I use it? Albie smiled his wise old smile. Now you're thinking like Pip, he said. From that day on, Pip's training changed. He didn't fight his wibbly-wobbly nature anymore. Instead, he leaned into it. When he felt a wobble starting, he'd flick a flipper and turn it into a spin. When he started to zigzag, he'd use it to dodge imaginary obstacles. He practiced on all sorts of hills, big and small, bumpy and smooth. He learned that a little wobble to the left could help him take a sharp corner. A big wibble could launch him over a bump in the ice. His clumsy style wasn't a weakness, it was a superpower. He was no longer trying to slide in a straight line, he was dancing on the ice. Finally, the day of the great ice slide arrived. The air buzzed with excitement. Penguins lined the sides of Crystal Peak, cheering for their favorites. At the top, Pip stood next to Percy and the other racers. Percy gave Pip a smug look. "Try to stay on the track this time, wobbly Pip," he sneered. It was a long, sweeping turn. They slowed down just a little to stay on the path. But here came Pip. Instead of slowing down, he let his wobble take over. He wibbled left, then wiggled right, using his momentum to spin right around the curve at full speed. He shot past two of the other racers. The crowd gasped. The next part of the track was a series of bumpy hills, the icy bumps. The other penguins were being jostled around, losing speed as they bounced up and down. Percy, being so stiff and straight, was having a tough time. Thump, thump, he bounced uncomfortably. But Pip saw the bumps and grinned. At the first bump, he did a little hop wobble, launching himself into the air and landing smoothly on the downside of the next bump. He was practically flying over them, using his wobbly style to absorb the shocks. Whoosh! He passed two more penguins, his heart singing with joy. Now, only Percy was ahead of him. Percy was fast on the straight parts, and the final stretch of the race was a long, straight dash to the finish line. He glanced back and saw Pip catching up. A look of panic crossed his face. He pushed harder, sliding faster and faster. But Percy didn't know about the final challenge of Crystal Peak, the tricky chute. It was a narrow, twisting tunnel of ice near the end of the track. Percy, going too fast and being too rigid, couldn't make the sharp turns inside. Clang! He bumped into one wall clonk. He hit the other. He slowed down, disoriented. Just then, Pip entered the tricky chute. He saw the twists and turns not as obstacles, but as a dance floor. He wibbled left for the first turn, spun right for the second, and zigzagged his way through the tunnel with perfect, joyful control. He shot out of the end of the chute like a cork from a bottle, right past the dazed Percy. The finish line was in sight. The crowd was going wild. They weren't laughing at Pip's wobble anymore. They were cheering for it. "Go, Pip, go," they chanted. Pip tucked in his flippers, flattened his belly, and gave it everything he had. He could feel the wind, he could hear the cheers, and he could see the finish line getting closer and closer. With one final, happy squawk, he zoomed across it, a full penguin length ahead of Percy. He had done it. Pip, the wibbly-wobbly penguin, was the new champion of the great ice slide. The crowd surrounded him, cheering and patting him on the back. Olby flew down and gave him a proud hug with his giant wing. Even Percy came over, looking humbled. "Wow, Pip," he said. "I've never seen anyone slide like that. Your wobble. It's amazing." The Emperor Penguin presented Pip with the gleaming ice trophy. It was even more beautiful than he had imagined. And Pip was always happy to teach them because he had learned the most important lesson of all. The things that make you different are the very things that make you special. And sometimes your greatest weakness can turn out to be your greatest strength.